Thanks for joining. Today's presentation is brought to you by Corey and Smith Health for Life Medical Center and Restore Hope for Health. Today, we're going to break down dairy from a functional medicine and food science perspective. We'll explore what milk is at a molecular level, how it changes when processed, and why our bodies respond differently to it. By the end, you'll have the tools to decide if dairy works for you or not, without the confusion that often comes with this topic. Milk is one of the oldest and most controversial foods humans consume. For some, it's a nutritional powerhouse. For others, it can cause digestive issues, inflammation, or hormonal changes. The difference often comes down to the milk structure, how it's been processed, and how your body handles those components. Today we'll binge Harold McGee's deep dive into milk chemistry with what we know from functional medicine about digestion, metabolism, and inflammation. From a food science standpoint, milk is essentially water, sugar, fats, proteins, and bioactive compounds all working together. McGee explains how casein proteins form tiny clusters that carry calcium and phosphorus, while whey proteins stay dissolved in the liquid. Fats come in tiny globules surrounded by a membrane that protects them until they're digested. Processing, like homogenization and pasteurization, alters these structures, which can change digestibility and even nutrient bioavailability. Understanding these components is key to understanding how milk might help or harm your health. Milk contains two main types of protein, casein and whey. About 80% is casein, which naturally clusters into microscopic spheres that carry calcium and phosphorus to young mammals. This slow digesting protein helps provide sustained nourishment. But for some people, certain forms, like A1 beta casein, can cause more inflammation or digestive upset compared to A2 form, found in goat, sheep, and some cow breeds. The other 20% is whey protein, the liquid portion left after curdling milk. This digests quickly and is rich in immunoglobulins, lactoferrin, and bioactive peptides that can support immunity. Whey is also a high-quality protein source for muscle repair and metabolic function. However, pasteurization and ultra-high heat treatments can denature both whey and casein, altering their structure and sometimes making them less digestible. This is one reason some people tolerate raw or minimally processed dairy better than highly processed milk products. Lactose intolerance isn't the same as a milk allergy or a casein sensitivity. Lactose is a sugar, and digesting it requires the lactase enzyme. When lactase production drops, lactose stays intact and becomes food for gut bacteria, which then produce gas and draw water into the intestines, leading to bloating and diarrhea. Harold McGee explains how fermentation changes this dynamic. Bacteria break down much of the lactose, which is why fermented dairy often causes fewer symptoms. From a functional medicine standpoint, it's critical to test whether symptoms are due to lactose itself or to proteins like casein, because the dietary approach will differ. Milk fat is not just cream. It's a suspension of tiny fat globules wrapped in a membrane that protects the fat from enzymes and oxidation until digestion. The fat is a complex mix, mostly saturated fat, but also monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, including CLA, which has anti-inflammatory and metabolic benefits. The omega-3 to omega-6 balance in milk depends heavily on the cow's diet. Grass-fed dairy tends to have more omega-3s and a healthier fat profile. Processing changes this structure. Homogenization breaks the globules into smaller pieces so the cream doesn't rise, but this also changes how our body interacts with the fat. Pasteurization also has less effect on the fat itself, but does destroy certain enzymes associated with fat digestion. Milk is biologically active. It's designed to support the growth and immunity of a newborn. McGee explains in detail how enzymes like lipase, which helps break down fats, and lactase, which helps digest lactose, both of which are greatly reduced or eliminated by heat processing. Immune proteins such as lactoferrin bind iron to limit bacterial growth, while immunoglobulins act as antibodies, providing passive immunity. Milk also contains natural hormones and growth factors, including IGF-1, which supports growth in infants, but may influence metabolic and hormonal health in adults. In raw milk, beneficial bacteria can also support gut health. These are destroyed in pasteurization, but can be reintroduced through cultured dairy like yogurt or kefir. Processing changes milk in ways that go beyond safety. Pasteurization, as McGee describes, was originally developed to kill harmful bacteria, which it does well, but it also destroys enzymes that help digest milk and reduce certain vitamins. Homogenization was developed mainly for consumer convenience, so the cream doesn't separate. But in doing so, it changes the structure of the fat globule membrane, which some believe alters how the body reacts with dairy fats. Ultra-high temperature treatments takes this further, making milk shelf-stable but causing more nutrient and flavor changes. From a functional medicine perspective, these changes can impact digestion, nutrient absorption, and even immune response. That's why many people explore raw or minimally processed dairy as an alternative, which is exactly what we'll cover next. Raw dairy is milk in its most natural form, exactly as it comes from the animal. McGee points out that pasteurization changes many of the milk's original qualities, so raw dairy retains more vitamins, enzymes, and beneficial bacteria. These can improve digestion for some and may even support a healthier gut microbiome. There's compelling research from European farm populations showing that children raised on raw milk have lower rates of asthma and allergies. This is thought to be due to early immune system exposure to beneficial microbes and unaltered proteins. But raw dairy isn't without risk. If the source farm has poor sanitation or the milk is mishandled, dangerous pathogens can be present. From a functional medicine standpoint, the decision comes down to your individual immune health, digestive function, and confidence in your source. It's not an all or nothing topic, it's about informed choices. When tolerated, dairy offers a lot of nutritional value in a compact package. It's one of the most concentrated sources of calcium, but it also brings a lot of other bone-supporting nutrients like vitamin K2 and magnesium, especially with grass-fed and fermented forms. The protein quality in dairy is excellent for supporting muscle maintenance, especially in the aging population, and can help with satiety and blood sugar control when paired with balanced meals. Fermented dairy has the added benefit of delivering probiotics, which can enhance gut microbial diversity. And from a functional medicine perspective, components like CLA and omega-3 fats can play a role in reducing inflammation and supporting metabolic health. Of course, the benefits depend on the type and the quality of dairy and whether your body can digest and use it effectively. Dairy isn't universally well tolerated. For some, proteins like casein can act as an inflammatory trigger, especially the A1 form found in most commercial cow's milk. This can show up as digestive issues, joint pain, or skin problems. Lactose intolerance is another common concern, but as we covered earlier, it's due to the sugar, not the protein. From a functional medicine standpoint, it's important to test which component is causing issues before eliminating all dairy. Hormonal effects are also worth noting. Milk naturally contains hormones, and it can stimulate the release of insulin-like growth factor 1, which may impact certain conditions like PCOS or hormone-sensitive cancers. Finally, quality matters. Milk from commercially raised cows often has lower omega-3 levels and can carry trace contaminants, while grass-fed organic dairy generally has a better nutrient profile. In functional medicine, we don't take a one-size-fits-all approach to dairy. First, we look at symptoms. And that's not just digestive symptoms, it's also skin, hormonal, and inflammatory signs. Then we test. An elimination and reintroduction trial is the gold standard for most people. But lab testing can add extra clarity, especially for protein sensitivities or lactose intolerance. Stool testing can also reveal if your gut microbiome is equipped to handle dairy. Quality matters just as much as tolerance. Many people who react poorly to conventional milk do fine with grass-fed or A2 dairy, or only with fermented forms. The goal isn't necessarily to cut out all dairy forever. It's to figure out what works for your unique body and in what amount. Dairy is more than just milk, and the way it's processed or aged changes its nutritional profile, digestibility, and health impact, which we've talked about before in this presentation. Unfermented products like whole milk, cream, and butter retain their lactose unless they're just the fat portion, like butter. Cream and butter concentrate the fat and fat-soluble vitamins, while butter also contains small amounts of short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate, which supports colon health. Fermented dairy, like yogurt or kefir, uses bacterial cultures to pre-digest lactose, making them easier to tolerate for many people. They also deliver probiotics, though the strains vary by product. Cheese is its own world. Fresh cheeses have more lactose and a mild flavor, while aged cheeses have very little lactose and a rich nutrient and flavor profile due to the microbial activity during aging. For many who can't drink milk, aged cheese is still an option. When removing dairy, it's important to replace what you're losing nutritionally. Plant-based milks are a good starting point, but don't naturally have as much protein or calcium. So look for fortified versions and be mindful of the added sugars or gums. If you're looking for probiotics, some coconut or almond-based yogurts now include live active cultures. Nut-based cheeses can be a good option, especially if they're fortified with calcium and B12. From a whole food standpoint, you can get calcium from small-boned fish like sardines, leafy greens, sesame seeds, and fortified non-dairy milks. Vitamin K2, which is key for bone health, can be found in fermented foods like natto and sauerkraut, as well as in grass-fed meats and egg yolks if those are tolerated. The bottom line is you can thrive without dairy, but you have to be intentional about filling the nutrient gaps it leaves. If you take away one thing from today, it's that dairy is complex, both in its chemistry and in how it interacts with the human body. Harold McGee gives us the science behind milk's molecular structure, and functional medicine helps us apply that to real life, personalizing it to the individual. Processing can improve safety, but can also strip away some of the very components that make dairy beneficial. Raw dairy can offer advantages for some people, but it's not without its risks, and the source is everything. Whether dairy ends up on your plate should be determined by how your body feels, what the science says about your unique needs, and the quality of the product you choose. It's not about blanket rules, it's about making an informed, intentional choice. Here are the main references we use to build this presentation. Harold McGee's work gives us the molecular science of dairy, while the peer-reviewed studies and functional medicine resources provide the clinical and practical application. These resources range from foundational science to applied functional medicine and practical decision-making tools. This list is a great starting point if you want to dig deeper or explore the nuance between types of dairy. Thank you for joining us on this presentation about dairy. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. For more information or to shop any of our products, go to shop.cshealthforlife.com.